My parents forgot my birthday. For 4 straight years, but threw lavish parties for my sister, so I left and made them regret it all. I'm a 26-year-old guy, and I don't think my parents ever really saw me. I don't mean that in a poetic way. I mean it literally felt like I could walk through our house and no one's eyes would follow me. My mom was the kind of woman who cared more about what people thought of our family than the family itself. Her hair was always perfect, her smile rehearsed, and her phone never left her hand. My dad, he wasn't cruel, just silent. The kind of man who let things slide because speaking up would cause drama. Together, they created a home where silence was safer than honesty. Then there was Lily, my younger sister by 4 years, the sun around which everything orbited. Our beautiful Lily, Mom would say whenever someone complimented her. When Lily brought home a drawing from kindergarten, it went on the fridge for weeks. When I brought home a spelling bee trophy, it sat on a shelf for a day before being replaced by her participation ribbon. Every time she messed up, Mom would spin it into a story about her being sensitive or misunderstood. But when I made the smallest mistake, I'd get the lecture about not embarrassing the family. I used to tell myself I didn't mind. I thought if I worked harder, maybe they'd see me. I joined the soccer team, made the honor roll, even got a summer job to help pay bills. Still, all I got was, "That's nice, honey," while Mom rushed to ask Lily about her day. It was like trying to scream underwater. The sound never reached the surface. For years, I thought the worst thing was being invisible, that their indifference was the wound I'd carry forever. But I was wrong. It wasn't the silence that broke me. It was what came after. My 18th birthday was supposed to feel like a milestone. Adulthood, freedom, a step into my own life. But in my house, it was just another Tuesday. That morning, I came downstairs half expecting a happy birthday, or even a quick hug. Instead, my mom was frantically ironing Lily's dress for her dance recital, barking orders about shoes, hairpins, and makeup. My dad was fiddling with his camera, making sure he could capture every moment of Lily's big day. No one looked at me, not once. I stood there, keys in hand, hoping someone would remember. I even said, "Hey, I'll grab some dinner after work tonight." My mom barely looked up. "Fine, just don't be late. We'll be at the auditorium all evening." That was it. No card, no cake, not even a happy birthday. I drove to work with this tightness in my chest that I couldn't name. Part anger, part shame. When you grow up being invisible, you learn not to expect much. But something about that day made it sink in that I truly didn't matter to them. That night, when I came home, I saw the house covered in glitter and balloons, leftovers from Lily's post-recital party. She was laughing, showing off her bouquet. My mom turned to me and said, "Oh, you missed it. Lily was amazing." I wanted to tell her it was my birthday, that I'd sat alone in a diner staring at melting ice cream because I didn't have the heart to go home. But the words stuck. I just nodded, went upstairs, and shut my door quietly. I told myself they'd make it up next year. They had to. But as I looked at my calendar that night, one thought crept in and refused to leave. Maybe I was never meant to be celebrated at all. The next few years became a cycle of hope and disappointment. Every time my birthday came around, I told myself, this will be the year they remember. I'd even drop hints, mention plans with friends, casually say, "Can't believe I'm turning 20 soon." But nothing ever changed. They'd always be too busy with something that mattered more. When I turned 19, they spent the day throwing a graduation barbecue for Lily. She hadn't even graduated yet. It was a preview celebration because, as Mom said, you can never celebrate Lily too much. I remember standing by the grill, flipping burgers while they toasted to her bright future. Not a single person there knew it was my birthday. I told myself it didn't matter. But when Lily handed me a plate with a smile and said, "You're so quiet today," I wanted to scream. 20 came and went the same way. They posted pictures of a family vacation they'd taken without me. I was too busy working, apparently, even though I'd never been invited. I spent that night watching fireworks through my apartment window, wondering what it would be like to have parents who actually remembered the day you were born. By 21, I stopped mentioning it entirely. I figured if I didn't expect anything, I couldn't be disappointed. But when I opened social media that morning and saw pictures of my parents at some fancy restaurant celebrating Lily's new internship, something inside me cracked. It wasn't just about the birthday anymore. It was the pattern. The proof that I didn't exist in their world unless I was doing something for them. I sat there staring at my phone, feeling this hollow ache that no amount of rationalizing could fix. And as the years blurred together, one truth became impossible to ignore. They'd forgotten me long before they forgot my birthday. By the time Lily turned 21, our house looked like a scene straight out of a magazine. Gold balloons everywhere, a custom cake taller than my torso, and a rented photographer to capture every candid laugh. Mom wore a designer dress pretending we were some picture-perfect family. I was there too, standing behind the camera taking photos because Mom said, "You're good with angles, sweetheart. Make sure Lily's face looks soft." That's what I'd become, the unpaid help at my sister's celebrations. As guests poured in, all I heard were compliments about Lily. "She's so mature for her age. She's doing so well in life. You must be so proud of her." My parents smiled like royalty, soaking in every word. Not one person asked about me. Not one. I worked 2 jobs to stay afloat in college, but to them, my hard work wasn't worth a mention. Later that night, when the music quieted, I found myself in the kitchen cleaning up while Lily unwrapped gifts in the living room. My dad walked in, patted my back, and said, "You're a good brother for helping out." I almost laughed. Helping out? For a sister who couldn't even text me on my birthday? When I brought out the last bag of trash, I passed by the dining table where Mom and Lily were flipping through pictures from the night. I overheard my mom say, "We should throw her something bigger next year. Maybe rent out that vineyard." Lily laughed and said, "Totally. Oh, and we can do a theme." I stood there in the hallway, listening to them plan yet another celebration I'd never be part of. That night, lying in bed, the laughter still echoing through the walls, I realized something cold and undeniable. I wasn't just forgotten. I was background noise in a life that revolved around her spotlight. It happened on a random Saturday, the kind of day that starts quiet but ends up changing everything. I'd driven home to visit, thinking maybe time had softened things. I'd just gotten a promotion at work, and a small part of me hoped my parents might actually be proud for once. But when I walked through the door, the house was buzzing with music, laughter, and the smell of champagne. Balloons, streamers, cake. I froze. "What's going on?" I asked. Mom looked up, surprised I was even there. "Oh, didn't I tell you? We're throwing Lily a party. She just got promoted." Lily, in her sparkly dress holding a glass of wine, squealed. "You made it. Isn't this great?" I smiled out of reflex, but inside something was unraveling. I stood there, surrounded by people I didn't know, while everyone toasted to her success. Not one person asked about me. Not one mention of my own promotion. When I tried to bring it up, Mom laughed lightly, waving her hand. "That's nice, honey. But Lily's really climbing fast. Her boss said she's leadership material." The room erupted in more praise. At dinner, Dad made a toast. To Lily, for making this family proud. The words hit like a slap. My fork clinked against the plate. "You know," I said quietly, "I got promoted too." The table went silent for half a second before Mom filled it with forced laughter. "That's nice, dear," she said again, before turning back to Lily. That was the moment it all clicked. The years of silence, the forgotten birthdays, the endless excuses. They weren't accidents. I was never going to be enough for them because they'd already decided who mattered. I went upstairs that night and packed my overnight bag. I didn't say goodbye, but as I closed the door behind me, one thought kept repeating in my head, "I'm done being invisible." I didn't leave that night for good, not yet, but something inside me had shifted permanently. I stopped reaching out, stopped checking in, stopped waiting for them to care. Instead, I started planning my escape like a soldier preparing for a quiet war. I picked up freelance work after hours, saved every extra dollar, and started researching cities far away where no one would know me as Lily's brother. Every night after work, I'd sit in my small apartment with my laptop open, running on instant coffee and resentment. One evening, I got an email from a startup in another state. A full-time offer, remote flexibility, great pay. It felt like someone had finally noticed me. I didn't tell my parents. They wouldn't have listened anyway. They'd have said something like, "That's great, but who's going to help Lily with her move?" So I quietly accepted, signed the contract, and marked the date on my calendar, my Independence Day. A week before I was set to leave, Mom called out of nowhere. "We're having family dinner next weekend. Be there." I almost said no, but a part of me wanted to see if they'd changed, if there was even an ounce of awareness. At the table, Lily talked nonstop about her new apartment while Dad kept asking about her furniture choices. When I mentioned I was thinking of moving too, Mom barely looked up. "Well, make sure you stay close. You know your sister needs you." That was when I realized they didn't even consider my life my own. I wasn't their son. I was a convenience, a background character designed to make Lily's world easier. That night, I sent in my final notice for the lease, booked a one-way ticket, and shut my phone off. I didn't owe them a goodbye. I wasn't running away. I was finally walking towards something. And for the first time in my life, the silence felt peaceful. By the time my 25th birthday rolled around, I was living in my new apartment, miles away from home, small, quiet, and entirely mine. The kind of place where no one shouted over me, where the only voice that mattered was my own. I wasn't expecting much from anyone that year. Still, a part of me, that stupid, hopeful part, wondered if maybe, just maybe, my parents would remember this time. I woke up early, checked my phone. Nothing. No text, no missed call. The silence was louder than any words. I spent the morning cleaning up my place, trying to distract myself. By noon, I gave in and scrolled through social media. There it was, a post from Lily, a carousel of photos from her vacation in Italy. My parents were there too, holding wine glasses, smiling under fairy lights. The caption read, "Family means everything." I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Family means everything, except when it came to me. That line felt like a punch to the chest. I closed the app and walked to the corner bakery. Bought myself a single cupcake. The cashier smiled and said, "Special occasion." I forced a laugh. Something like that. I walked home with the tiny box in my hand, sat by the window, and lit the candle. The wax dripped faster than I could make a wish. As I blew it out, I felt nothing. No sadness, no anger. Just emptiness, like they'd finally succeeded in erasing me. That night, I turned off my phone completely and left it that way for weeks. No calls. No messages. That was the last birthday they'd ever forget, because from that moment on, I stopped existing in their world altogether. And deep down, I knew they wouldn't even notice I was gone. Cutting them off wasn't dramatic. No shouting, no confrontation, no long text explaining why. I just disappeared. I didn't block their numbers at first, but I stopped answering. I didn't visit for holidays. I stopped liking Lily's posts. I became a ghost in their picture-perfect world. For a while, I expected the calls to flood in. They didn't. Weeks turned into months, and the silence became its own kind of grief. Not because I missed them, but because they didn't seem to miss me. At first, Mom sent the occasional text, "Hope you're okay." Then, "Call me when you get a chance." But the tone shifted fast when I didn't respond. "You're being ungrateful," one message read. "Family doesn't ignore family." The irony made me laugh out loud, the kind of bitter laugh that hurts your throat. I deleted the messages without replying. By the third month, even the guilt faded. I filled the quiet with new things. Cooking for myself, meeting friends who asked about my day, building routines that didn't revolve around earning approval. My apartment started feeling more like home than that house ever did. Still, sometimes at night when the city went still, I'd catch myself wondering if they'd ever notice the space I'd left behind. Then, around Thanksgiving, I got a voicemail from my dad. His voice oddly small. "Your mother's worried. We didn't see you at dinner. Hope you're okay. That was it. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just confusion at the absence of the person they'd spent years pretending wasn't there. And somehow, that message said everything I needed to hear. They didn't miss me. They missed the version of me that served them. So I stayed silent. Because sometimes silence isn't avoidance. It's the only language people like that ever understand. Nearly a year passed before I heard from them again. It was Lily who called this time. Her voice as bubbly as ever. "Hey, we're having a dinner next week for my engagement. You have to come." I almost hung up, but curiosity won. "Your engagement?" I asked. "Wow, congrats." She giggled, ignoring my tone. "Yeah, Mom really wants you there. It'll be nice to have the whole family together again." Her words dripped with irony, but part of me wanted to see them. To stand in that house again, not as the forgotten son, but as someone who'd finally built a life on his own terms. When I arrived, it felt like stepping onto a movie set I'd already seen too many times. Same decorations, same fake smiles. But this time, I didn't shrink into the background. I wore a tailored suit, confident posture, and a calm expression that didn't need approval. The moment I walked in, Mom froze for half a second before pasting on her hostess grin. "You look different," she said. "Doing well, I hope?" Dinner was painfully polite. They talked about Lily's upcoming wedding, her fiancé's job, the guest list. I mostly listened until Lily's fiancé, Evan, turned to me mid-meal. "I actually know your name from an article," he said. "Your startup's been making waves. That's you, right?" The room went still. My mom blinked. "Startup?" she asked, confusion creeping into her voice. I nodded. "Yeah, I launched it last year. We just hit our first big milestone." Evan grinned. "That's incredible, man. Congrats." Mom forced a laugh. "Oh well, we've always supported his ambitions," she said, like reciting a line she'd just learned. I met her eyes across the table and said quietly, "No, you didn't." For once, she didn't have a script ready. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was satisfying. Because for the first time in my life, I was the one they didn't know how to talk over. After that dinner, something shifted. My silence had done what years of begging never could. It made them uncomfortable. A few days later, I got a text from Mom. "We're so proud of you, sweetheart. Sorry, we haven't kept in touch. Let's have lunch soon?" I stared at it for a long time before locking my phone. Pride? That word coming from her felt like an insult. She wasn't proud. She was embarrassed she'd missed the story now everyone else was applauding. Then came Dad's message. "Your mother's been emotional. She misses you." The same man who never said a word when she ignored me now wanted to play peacekeeper. I didn't respond. The more they tried to act like everything was fine, the more I realized they didn't want to fix what they'd broken. They just wanted to erase the proof that they'd ever done it. Meanwhile, life kept moving for me. My startup grew. I hired a small team, rented a new office, and started mentoring interns who reminded me of myself. Quiet kids desperate to be seen. For the first time, I felt useful, valued. I'd built something no one could take from me. But apparently, success travels faster than silence, because soon my mom started calling again. "Your dad and I were just saying how proud we are of your drive," she said one evening, her voice overly sweet. "Maybe you could come home this Christmas. Lily's fiancé would love to see you again." I almost laughed. It wasn't about missing me. It was about showing me off. They wanted me back now that I was someone worth bragging about. So I told her the truth. "I'm happy where I am," I said quietly. "And I don't think home is where you pretend it is." Her silence on the other end told me she finally understood. I wasn't coming back. Not for them. Not ever again. Months passed after that last phone call, and for the first time, I felt at peace. But peace has a way of being disturbed when the people who broke you suddenly decide to play the victim. One Sunday afternoon, I got another message, this time from Dad. "Your mother isn't well. Please come home, just for dinner." I hesitated. Part of me didn't want to give them another second of my life, but another part, the tired, unfinished part, needed closure. When I walked through the front door, it felt smaller than I remembered. The walls that once felt endless now looked cracked and faded. Mom was at the dining table, pretending to look frail, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. "You came," she said, forcing a smile. "I was so worried about you." I didn't sit down. "Worried? You forgot I existed for 4 straight years." She flinched, glancing at Dad, who stayed quiet. "We didn't mean to," she whispered. "We just got caught up with Lily and what?" I cut in. "Forgot you had another child? Forgot the birthdays? The graduation? The years I tried to make you proud?" My voice cracked, but I didn't care. "You didn't forget, Mom. You just didn't care." Her face hardened. "You're being cruel. We did our best." I laughed, the kind of laugh that comes from exhaustion. "Your best was ignoring me while throwing parties for Lily. Your best was calling me ungrateful when I stopped begging for scraps of affection." Dad finally spoke, his voice low. "We just want to move forward, son." I nodded slowly. "I already did." I placed my house key on the table, the same key I'd kept since high school, and looked at them one last time. "Love isn't measured by who you say you care about," I said quietly. "It's measured by who you actually show up for." Then I walked out. No dramatic slam, no tears. Just the sound of the door clicking shut behind me. And for the first time, I felt lighter than air. It's been 3 years since that night, and sometimes I still wake up expecting the old ache, that hollow feeling of not being enough. But it never comes. The silence that once haunted me now feels like freedom. I live in a small house near the coast, far from that suffocating town, surrounded by people who actually mean it when they ask how my day was. I've built a life I never thought I'd have. One filled with peace, laughter, and the kind of warmth that doesn't demand anything in return. My company's doing better than ever. I mentor young people who grew up feeling unseen, because I know exactly what that pain feels like. Every time I watch one of them light up with pride over something they've accomplished, I think, this is what being seen truly looks like. No performance, no conditions, no golden child nonsense. Just genuine acknowledgement. Last year, on my birthday, my friends surprised me. Nothing extravagant. Just a small dinner, a homemade cake, candles that burned unevenly, and laughter that filled the room. When they started singing, I didn't know what to do. My throat tightened and I had to blink away tears. For a moment, I thought about every year that had been stolen from me. The empty tables, the forgotten days, the silence. But then I realized those memories didn't hurt anymore. They'd lost their power the day I stopped needing validation from people incapable of love. Later that night, I walked down to the beach with the ocean breeze on my face and whispered, "Happy birthday," to myself. Not out of sadness, but out of gratitude. Gratitude for surviving, for choosing myself, for walking away. Because in the end, I didn't need them to remember me. I just needed to remember that I was always worth remembering.